Julian remains contracted to for the moment, yet he's already being linked with his next job. The club's sporting director handed in his resignation earlier this season, which was a curious move considering he was only appointed last summer. The plan was to navigate a seamless internal transition from but somewhere along the line, the latter felt compelled to resign from his decorated position at one of the biggest clubs on the continent. It was a shock for supporters, with Director of Research Ian Graham also set to follow him out of the door. Due to leave Merseyside at the end of the current campaign, is already being tipped for a move to Ajax, although he understands the 41-year-old cannot assume a role at a new club for another 12 months. It remains to be seen how the Reds will replace him, but Jurgen Klopp's status at Anfield is a peculiar factor to consider. When first purchased back in 2010, it was keen to implement a model which incorporated a sporting director at the summit. It wasn't a particularly common structure for clubs to adopt in England, with the all-seeing manager instead empowered to become that person. The manager is the face of the operation in England's top flight, thanks largely to figures of the past including Bill Shankly, Alex Ferguson, Brian Clough and Arsene Wenger to name but a few legends of the sport. By contrast, recognized the logic in appointing a sporting director above the manager. There has always been an unforgiving competition, with the typical manager lasting less than 2 seasons at the helm before he's dismissed and replaced by somebody else. Every time a new leader is appointed, wholesale changes are made to the squad by the manager, who is unlikely to remain in charge for longer than 24 months. For that reason, the sporting director model makes plenty of sense on English shores, and over time, many clubs have begun to embrace the modern structure. Virtually every club in the division employs a sporting director in today's game, with those figures responsible for managing the medium to long-term health of the squad regardless of the manager. Edwards was sporting director for most of Klopp's first 7 years on Merseyside. In fact, he was largely responsible for the high-profile signature of over Julian Brandt in the summer of 2017, with the German coach initially favouring his compatriot. Was supposed to replace Edwards at the end of last season, but that handover clearly hit some insurmountable snags. Exactly what those were is not known, but it seems plausible that the end of such a long working relationship between Klopp and his previous sporting director could have produced 1 or 2 question marks over the new chain of command. After all, Klopp occupies an unusual spot. He's now been at for over 7 years, which makes him different to virtually all of his peers, who tend to swap and change clubs on a regular basis. In essence, Klopp has been in charge for longer than the typical manager and sporting director. For that reason, has a tricky decision to make when it comes to replacing. The need for a sporting director who oversees medium to long-term health is less important as long as Klopp remains in charge. His stature has grown across his 7-year spell on Merseyside, and now, everything looks set to go through him, rightly or wrongly. Is certain to replace, with the search already said to be underway. Whether Klopp has any say in that particular appointment is unknown, as is the eventual nature of the dynamic between the pair. If there's one thing that is for certain, though, it is that is very much entering into a new era at Anfield, and the decision over who next shapes the sporting director role will be a huge one. Cody Gakpo must copy Roberto Firmino at after Alan Shearer's not good enough claim frightened Darwin Núñez, told by pundit he has major issue after record transfer.